Everything's open. Well, school was really complicated with them. Yeah, well, cats like to be the star of the show. I never get mad at a cat sighting on a Zoom call, though. It was usually my foster kittens too, so it was never cute. How to, okay. And then usually a selection of others, but not right now. I should collect cats, it's fine. I'll find it. The best spot.
I think we're ready to go, Steve, and you're ready to go.
Oh, okay. Hang on a sec. Okay, welcome everyone, NMCOG meeting. It's Wednesday, March 20th at 7 o'clock. And we'll start the meeting with a call to order and roll call, please.
Yes, I am not seeing any, I'm gonna just call who's here. We don't have anybody from Billerica at this moment in time. Pat,
Here.
just as I said that, actually. It's like a call to the universe. Chris is here from Billerica. Anita,
Okay,
Here.
Mike,
Hello, everyone.
hi, Chris. Mike is here, Phil,
Here.
Jerry,
Here.
Chuck,
Here.
Steve.
Oh.
yeah,
Jane,
Here.
Alex, here, and Darren.
Here.
Excellent.
okay.
All
Thank
right,
you, thank you, Jen.
we, for anybody who's not speaking right now, would you please mute yourselves? So I'm getting a little background noise. Thank you.
All
Okay,
set?
Steve. Yes,
Okay. I could move the agenda item number 2, meeting minutes, minutes from NMCOG council meeting, February 21st, 2024. Any changes, any corrections? If not, need a motion to accept them?
So
Motion
moved.
to accept,
Second.
okay.
from
Okay,
Phil
roll
and
call,
then Jane seconded. Roll call, Chris,
Aye.
Pat,
Aye.
Anita,
Aye.
Mike.
Aye.
Phil,
aye,
Jerry,
Aye.
Chuck,
Aye.
Steve,
aye,
Jane,
Aye.
Alex,
Abstain.
Darren,
Aye.
okay,
and
motion,
Mary McBride just entered the room.
oh, okay, good.
Famous.
There's a red carpet here as well.
That should be.
Welcome, Mary.
For the purposes of the recording, and Doug as well.
And then, yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Fashionably late.
Okay, so motion passes on the minutes. Let's move on
Yes, sir.
to item number 3, financial report and warrant.
Good evening, everyone. Nice to see everybody. Sorry I
How you
missed you
doing?
last month. I just wanted to share with you here that we have a warrant for the month of, well, for the 21st of March through the 17th of April in the amount of 106,600. It includes 2 payrolls and outstanding bills that we have ready to pay. Actually, we just signed off on all the checks. So if there are any questions, please let me know.
Any questions for Sarah on the financials? Hearing none, can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call.
Mary,
Aye.
Pat,
Aye.
Anita.
Somebody.
Aye.
Oh, Chris, I'm sorry, Chris,
Oh, aye.
and Anita said aye. Doug,
I don't think he voted.
oh, that's right, thank you, yeah. Sorry, you don't vote, you are here, though, let me say hi, and aye. Yes. Cheers with coffee, okay, continuing, Mike,
Aye.
Phil,
Yes.
Jerry,
Aye.
Chuck,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Jane,
Aye.
Alex, abstain, Darren.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you all. Move on, agenda item number 4, fiscal 2023 NMCOG audit presentation. We have representatives from Ansys and Company, PC.
Yeah, hi, everybody. Thank you for having me tonight. First off, I just want to say I stopped by the open house last week. The offices are beautiful.
Thank you.
Moving like anything like that is such an undertaking. So it's congratulations that you did it. You're there and I hope you're very happy there.
It was a piece of cake, right, Jenny?
We're gonna do it again.
Yeah, yeah. Not too soon, we hope.
We actually got to perform part of the audit in your temporary space. So we kind of got to see both, which was nice. But I also want to thank Jenny and I want to thank Sarah, for all their hard work in getting through this audit. I know finding a new fiscal manager was a big undertaking. Sarah really dove in and, really got through things. And I think as I present, you're going to see some things were really examined more in depth by your management that made a big difference in your financials. And when we get there, I'll explain a little more, but I think you're going to have set a trend with some of the other planning commissions. So with that, Jenny, I don't know if you can share
Yes.
the PowerPoint. Thank you. Great. So I'm Mary Linsky. I didn't say that at first. I'm the director of not-for-profit services at Ansys and Company. I've been with the firm for over 20 years. This is my second year working on the NMCOG audit. Excellent. So first, I'm just going to give you a little bit of an audit summary and go through some required communications, and then we'll jump into some of the numbers. You hire us basically to audit your financial statements and issue an opinion. We're issuing what we'd call an unmodified opinion. That's a clean opinion. And that's basically saying that your financial statements are not materially misstated. We did not have any internal control findings during the financial statement audit. You were required this year to have a single audit. You, for most part, have had a single audit year after year after year. Last year, you were under the federal expenditure level of $750,000, and you didn't need that single audit. That'll play out a little bit in my presentation where you're going to see some of the differences. A lot of that had to do with your staffing situation last year, which led to not as much work being done on your federal grants, and therefore you didn't have those expenditures. But you're going to see that you're kind of ramping back up again, and you did require that single audit. The major program tested was the Metropolitan Transportation Planning and Non-Metropolitan Planning and Research Program. During our single audit testing, we test internal controls and compliance with a variety of requirements for that federal program. We did not have any internal control or compliance findings in relation to our testing. There were no prior audit findings from the 2022 audit either. We had one management comment, but it's very de minimis, therefore no formal letter issued. We had selected an umpteenth number of samples of everything for this audit. And there was one payroll that just, they couldn't locate the hard copies of it, and honestly, with a move, with the amount of people that, kind of came and left in the last year, this looked like more of an anomaly. Everything else we requested had been provided. All right. Our responsibilities under generally accepted auditing standards is to express an opinion, as I stated earlier. Management, however, is responsible for the accounting policies and the preparation of the financial statements. So in that packet or that PDF that you were all emailed, note 2 goes through all your policies. Those come from this group, from management. Our responsibility under generally accepted auditing. Oh dear, I put that twice. I guess I just wanted to emphasize it. Okay. I was in a repetitive frame of mind, I guess, when I was doing this. So your significant policies, as I said, are in note 2 to your financial statements. I'm just going to kind of do a high level tonight. If any of you after this meeting are going through, that 45, 47 page document, if you have any questions, please feel free, to reach out. There were no changes during the current year to the application of your existing policies. And we did not know any transactions entered into by the organization during the year for which there was lack of authoritative guidance or consensus. Your financial statements include some estimates. The significant estimates are your pension and OPEB liabilities, the indirect cost rate, and your allowance for doubtful accounts. We did not encounter any difficulties in dealing with management while performing or completing the audit. We did have some corrected misstatements. There were no uncorrected misstatements, and that's where management can say, either we don't want to book them for, they're too small, or they're going to cause like bookkeeping issues. And as long as they don't materially misstate your financial statements, that's okay. However, we did note some material misstatements that were corrected. One is typical. It's always the adjustment for OPEB, and we rely on the work of your specialists, the actuarial reports. I don't really deem that a misstatement, or something like management could even possibly calculate. So that's kind of just a recurring item. You did have an increase in your revenue that had been deferred on your DLTA grants for $226,000. And that was something, we worked with Sarah on. This one's the interesting one, the $126,000 decrease in the due to grantor liability. You've been carrying this liability as far back as 1994, not unlike other planning commissions. And basically it was a true up every year. You'd get an indirect cost rate from Mass DOT in the contract. And then after the audit, it might've been a little different. And so every year you were adjusting to this liability, basically saying, we owed this back to Mass DOT at some point. So this year, when we were going through the audit, we were working with Jenny and Sarah on, what the true up was going to be for this year. And, they questioned it. They were like, do we really need to give this back? Like, do we ever, like, if we do, why have we not, and Jenny reached out to Mass DOT, and Mass DOT basically said, you don't have to do this. We'll true it up in our contracts every year. So basically that removed $126,000 liability from your books. In talking with colleagues of mine, who work on planning commissions, they're very interested in this now as well. And you're likely to see this trend of management from other planning commissions looking for the same kind of guidance from Mass DOT. So good work to Jenny and Sarah there.
That's where the audit helps.
They basically saved you $126,000, right?
There you
Yes,
go.
exactly.
Gold star.
Yeah. I mean, I will say what it speaks to, is that it's great. You're not just gonna like look at what was there and say, we'll just keep doing things the same way every year. That you actually question how things are done.
That's great.
And the last adjustment was an increase in your deferred revenue. There were some billings for expense reimbursements. I think it related to fiscal year 24 near map. So we deferred that for fiscal year 23. There were no disagreements with management that would be significant to the financial statements or this auditor's report. We will request a representation from management in a letter dated today. And Jenny, I'll send that to you after this meeting. Okay, to our knowledge, there were no consultations with other accountants, and all of the discussions we have with management occur in our normal course of our professional relationships. They're not, the responses are not conditional on our retention as your auditors. And the last slide basically is saying that for the required supplementary information and the supplementary information, that we did provide limited procedures, inquiries of management regarding how that information is prepared, if it's prepared in the same way as the prior period, and if it was based on the same numbers and methodology in your general ledger. The information is intended for this group only, management of NMCOG as well, and shouldn't be distributed to other specified parties. All right, is there any questions on the required communications before I jump into the numbers? No? Okay. All right. So here we go. I'll just highlight a few of your changes. You know, your cash was up roughly $200,000. And you'll see as we make our way down this page that largely has to do with your contract advances as well. And some of your expenses came in under budget. But you had a new server purchase this year, which led to an increase in your fixed assets. And there's your operating lease liability, or asset rather, which had to be due with GASB 87, which we implemented in the prior year. That's being amortized as you make your rental payments. Next year, you're going to see this number shoot back up again because you have a new lease. You know, the lease was entered into after year end. Therefore, it wasn't, you know, nothing needed to be recorded as of June 30th. But next year, you will see that reflected here. Down below, grants payable. There you go. There's the $125,000 from Mass DOT gone and off your balance sheet. There in contract advances up around 103,000. Again, that was the grant timing from DLTA and the timing of your project work. Your accrued comp is down roughly $65,000, you know, and that really had to do with the amount of departures you had during the year and payouts of accrued time. There's your OPEB liability, it's basically cut in half this year, you know, and it's a wild card. It's basically off of the actuarial report based on your demographics, actuarial assumptions, you know, the markets, all of those things play into it. You did make an extra contribution in the prior year, which you'll see when we get into the detail of expenses, which also helps to keep the OPEB liability down. And there's the related decrease in the operating lease liability, not dissimilar to the asset. This year you do have restricted, oh, sorry, I just wanted to highlight one other thing. The restricted net position at the bottom, you'll see 15,000 this year. That's your GLCF grant. You know, it's restricted by donor for a certain purpose, and it was, I believe, for your strategic housing initiatives. And likely that'll be used during the current year and be zero next year. Okay, next slide. Statements of revenue, expenses, and changes in net position. Here's your federal, state, and local grants. You'll see that's up 255,000. You know, this is in direct correlation to what I was talking about in needing a single audit. You could see last year was at 1.3, and that was due to your staffing shortage, you know, and now this year you're righting the ship, you've got people in place. You know, Jenny's really making sure that positions, job descriptions or what people are working on is very specific, and that you're not leaving this money on the table. And then your other income's up roughly 124,000, and that's due to that reversal of that MDOT liability. All right. Under operating expenses, direct payroll's up, you know, as we stated, your contract work increased, and you did have a staffing shortage in the prior year. Your unallowed adjustments, that's all OPEB. And then your indirect costs up just a little bit, you know, contract work. And again, it was lower in the prior year due to the staffing shortages. If you look at your change in net position, it looks so high, right? It looks $685,000. But to really break that down, 550 of it is from OPEB, and 125 is that reversal of the Mass DOT grant. So that's really 675,000. So you have a $10,000 surplus for the year, which is what your organization should be doing. A lot of what you do is cost reimbursement. So you shouldn't have these gigantic surpluses from operations. Okay. And this is just a little bit more of a breakout of those expense groupings from the prior page. You have personnel up, you know, prior year was actually down like a shortage. So you've kind of, you know, are filling those positions as they should be staffed. And you had some retirements in the prior year as well. Fringe benefits, the payout, same thing. You had retirements and buybacks. Your insurance is up a bit. That's premium costs and, you know, having more employees. Professional fees are up roughly 10, but you know, Jenny, you had some IT assessments done during the year that account for that. And then you could see there that extra OPEB funding that was made in the prior year. All right. Are there any questions on all that? I know I ran through it kind of quickly. It really was a clean audit, you know, it's everything kind of tells a story. So not much different aside from really OPEB and reversing that grant than what you've been seeing, you know, at your meetings and being provided by Jenny and Sarah.
Yeah, thank you, Maria. That's a great explanation. It's nice to see a professional go through this and give us a better understanding of how this whole thing's put together. I just had a question. When I was a selectman, we used to get these financial statements for the town. We used to have an executive summary at the beginning. I know it's a little bit different here for NMCOG. Is that just a format? So if you want to get kind of an idea of exactly where we stand in kind of like a page form, do you do that for these types of regional planning organizations, or is it different for the towns?
So for the regional planning commissions, you do have the MD&A in that big packet, you know, but
Right.
that really comes from management, not from us.
Okay.
You know, that's atypical for us to ever kind of give an overall commentary included in our
Okay.
audited financials.
Okay, that was my question.
Yeah.
Anybody have any
Steve?
question? Yeah, go ahead, Chuck.
Hi, Mary. Just a question on the lease liability. Where
Sure.
we're going into a new lease facility, and we have to record the lease as an asset and a liability, which basically straight lines your expenses. If we were to do that on a cash basis, what would be the impact on our indirect cost? Because we're using that indirect cost as our pricing mechanism for some of our contracts. And if it's not a cash-based system, we probably will be getting some benefit in the first few years of the contract or the amortization of the lease. And we'll be in a negative cash position towards the end of the lease.
So it's
How-
interesting. Yeah, GASB. So you have two different, you know, kind of for non-governmental agencies, it's FASB, you know, and that leasing implementation treats operating leases a little differently. For GASB 87, which your organization has to follow, it treats all leases as financing leases. So it doesn't necessarily straight line anymore, you know, so it basically puts it on as a note, you know, and so you've got an interest expense, you've got the present value of the payments being made. So the expenses will change a little bit as time goes on. What is straight lined is the amortization of the asset. So, you know, and I can have Jenny and Sarah share with you when we do all the entries, so you can kind of see it. We have different clients taking different approaches from what you're saying as far as what it does from the indirect standpoint. And they're going, when they go to do their indirect costs, they're treating it as cash basis for what you just, for the reasoning you just spoke of.
Yeah, the new GAAP or new FASBs make lease expense very confusing to general readers.
They sure do. They sure do. Yeah. Yeah. And especially, I mean, you know, like I said, for the GASB, it's treating everything like a financing lease, you know, which brings with it, you know, interest expense and all these different kind of things, but all really rolls up and is reported as occupancy. You know, it's all related to that. But yeah, like we have clients that have like different types of state contracts and exactly what you just said. That was their concern, you know, that they're going to be able to apply a bigger expense in the earlier years and then fall short in the later years, you know.
Yeah, because especially as we look at and measure our cash and our performance, it doesn't necessarily correlate to our P&L.
Yeah. So and I will tell you some of our other clients, what they're doing is kind of doing like a below the line for the difference, you know, and so it would all depend on what your reporting looks like when you're doing your indirect costs and things like that. But there are ways to have it kind of line up with your cash, you know, expectations and liabilities.
And you've prepared a schedule so that Jenny and her staff can use that for pricing mechanisms?
We will for the new lease. Yeah, so this one we had done last year and it was just, you know, you guys were so close to the end
Yeah,
that it
this,
didn't
this
really
year's probably
matter.
this year's probably de minimis, but the future years
Exactly.
are probably gonna have some impact.
Yeah, and you have to include in that calculation options to extend,
Yeah, I know.
so the number could get really big.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Steve,
Yeah,
if
go
I
ahead.
just have a comment, Mary, it's Jerry, I just appreciate it appears that the language has been changed regarding the OPEB responsibility because, or potential liability, because it actually was an issue when we were trying to negotiate the lease, the way it was worded in our audit. So I
Okay.
do appreciate the language change, and somebody that wasn't familiar with it, it made it seem like
Sure.
it was much more of a black cloud as the possible financial obligation that the organization would have. So,
Right, right.
appreciate the softening of the language on that.
Sure.
The simpler the better, that's for sure. Any other comments for Mary on financials from the council? Okay, thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much, Mary. Great job. Great job.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you
explaining
all.
everything.
Steve, I just want to say,
Yeah,
Mary,
oh,
thank
go
you
ahead.
very much for working with the team and all of your team as well, helping us with this. And I just want to say, very grateful to Sarah for all of her work, pulling things together. It was no small feat because this was a year she was looking back on, which was one that where she was not here for most of it. So it was quite an endeavor, and I really appreciate your patience. And working with the team was great. So thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Thank you. Well, the feeling's mutual. So it'll be a breeze next year.
Yes.
You say that now.
I know, right? Knock on wood. All right. Well, you all have a wonderful night and a wonderful spring and summer. And Jenny, I'll be in touch with you and get you that letter. All right.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you,
Take care.
Mary.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Appreciate it. Yep. Okay, that was great. Let's move on to item number 6, report executive director's report for February 2024. Oh, wait, we'll go back to number 5. Sorry. 2024 Greater Lowell Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy SEDS Annual Performance Report. Presentation by Chris, if he's in the audience, Housing Economic Development Manager, Chris Hayes.
Yeah, before we do that, because we have a number of staff here, Steve,
go ahead.
so I just want to let staff introduce themselves. I'll start with the folks in this room.
Kelly Lanema, Deputy Director.
And Sarah?
Hi, Sarah Schreiber, Finance and Benefits Manager.
Of course, Chris.
Chris Hayes, Economic Development and Housing, I guess Housing and Economic Development Manager, United for Economic Development.
You know how we say that?
Yeah. Then we have 2 staff participating on the Zoom. Isabel?
Hi, everyone. Isabel Emmett, Regional Land Use Planner.
Megan?
Good afternoon or evening. Megan Tenhoff. I'm the Sustainability Planner.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. And so now Chris has a presentation. I think Chris and Isabel may do this together. I'm going to share it. Okay.
And so, yeah, kind of before we start, I just did want to credit Isabel Emmett, who we worked on a team to put this report together. It's an annual report that's required from the EDA. And we're both here to answer questions afterward, but I will kind of go through some of the highlights of the report and what the recommended actions are for the year. And have a little bit of discussion, and we do have a vote requested for it. So we can go to the first slide. So just for folks who don't know, we have a comprehensive economic development strategy. That's a 5-year plan that's required to get any grants from the Economic Development Administration of the United States. And we do get those grants all the time. So both us and other players in the region. I know US Lowell often applies for them. Middlesex Community College recently got one. City of Lowell's gotten one. So a lot of these get these grants. And this SEDS document is what allows us to get those grants. And we have to do a report once a year on the progress of this comprehensive economic development strategy plan. EDA doesn't require too much. It's like, 10 pages, whatever, tell us what you did. But we actually really use this opportunity with the SEDS committee, which is some folks from this council, but also municipal planners, nonprofits, business leaders, that we usually use it as an opportunity to coordinate with one another, communicate with one another, and really set some priorities for the year that aren't just NMCOG's priorities, but they're the partners' priorities as well. And we communicate those priorities to the EDA and to the public, on the public website, and to each other. Next slide. So now I'm going to kind of go through what I've been calling State of the Region, which is what Isabel and I kind of found from looking at economic indicators and census data, and also just kind of feedback from the SEDS committee. And the first thing that we are starting with is that we've seen kind of challenges in our recovery from COVID-19. And the first thing I'm highlighting here is something everybody knows. The interest rates have increased to combat inflation. They peaked at around 9.1% over the summer. They remain around 7%. Next slide. And despite these high interest rates for mortgages, the median single-family home sales price has continued to increase in most of our communities. It's in all the communities, Lowell's the lowest at about $450,000, Dunstall's the highest at $850,000. Notably, Westford and Chelmsford saw a slight decrease in median sales price, bucking the trend of all the other towns. But that actually is a larger trend that we're seeing, especially in Metro West, where luxury housing especially, so think big mansions over $1 million, that type of thing, are actually beginning to lower in price. But the kind of middle of the road homes still are increasing in price, so that does impact median a little bit. And I do want to show that these prices are not inflation adjusted. So the combination of prices that are continuing to increase because of restricted supply and high demand, and inflation rates increasing means that we are actually seeing a lot of slowdown in home sales, especially in single-family detached homes outside of the city of Lowell. They are generally where we see the most turnover, and so they have the largest default. So we're really seeing a dramatic decrease in the number of homes sold in the region. Next slide. High housing prices, restricted supply, not a lot of homes turning over. That seems to be the primary driver of a continued decline in population. Now, some of these years are one-off. This is census data, one-year census data, so it's from 2022, not 23. Between 20 and 21, we saw a pretty big decline in the city of Lowell, in Middlesex County, and the state. We have seen a continued decline in the city of Lowell, and we think probably the region, although the one-year estimates aren't available for the town, so we don't know for sure. Middlesex County as a whole, so including Cambridge, has increased a tiny bit. Massachusetts basically flatline. So we really aren't seeing, we're seeing declines and not much recovery, even though the United States is growing still. Next slide. One interesting thing, between 2020 and 2021, the Tax Foundation analyzed tax returns to determine who was moving out of Massachusetts as a whole. And what they found is that a significant portion of those that are moving out of Massachusetts are between 26 and 35, i.e. the folks who are just entering the workforce. We don't have that broken down for our region, but we have no reason to assume that it's any different for our region. Next slide. And we are seeing that it is a slow impact on our overall workforce. That blue chart is, the dark blue is people who are employed in our region. The light blue is people who are unemployed but looking for work. Those two together make up the labor force, and you can see from a peak, right, it was right before COVID, we have not recovered and have actually continued to slowly decline in the labor force. Our unemployment, on the other hand, is very low. And in fact, the city of Lowell as a whole, for the first time, has unemployment that's lower than the United States as a whole. Usually it's about a half a point to a full point above the United States. So even our basically unemployment's really, really low in our region. The labor shortage is creating a lot of impacts. LRTA has had difficulty finding drivers and has reduced bus service by about 30%. That has made all of the city of Lowell routes that used to be half-hour headways into hour headways, and some of the routes are now one-way loops. We're seeing a lot of impact, especially among small restaurant and retail businesses, in terms of reduced hours or closures. It's not just because they can't find enough business, it's because they can't find enough staff. And then finally, we've heard a lot of reports that municipalities are having trouble attracting qualified specialist positions. And the state budget issues that we've all talked about, and even the municipal ones to a certain extent, are partially caused by that combination of inflation, making expenses higher than projected. And at the state level, the tax receipts are lower because of the real estate transfer fees, because there aren't very many sales, they aren't getting very many fees. And so that's been a huge impact at the state level. Slide. More good news, business formation is slowing. Even though that dark blue line is the United States, then the Massachusetts, we see businesses continuing to grow. That's the number of businesses overall. In the United States, it's been 12%. In Massachusetts, it's close to 10% since 2021, the last 2 years. Whereas our region and the city of Lowell have both basically flatlined in the last year at only about 4 to 5% in the last 2 years. So we are not keeping pace with Massachusetts or the United States. And in fact, we haven't seen new businesses in a year. I mean, we've seen new businesses, but the same number of businesses have either moved out or closed. Natural resource and mining establishments decreased, especially. Information establishments did grow. In terms of looking at the number of employees, they increased the most in public administration, education and health, and manufacturing. So manufacturing is a bright spot. Public administration and education and health are the kinds of things that are just, places with population always have those. So it's not especially notable that we had an increase in that. The largest declines, unfortunately, were in some of the highest paying industries: professional business services, information, and trade, transportation, and utilities. And in fact, we saw wages decline, which is very unusual, and that was in trade, transportation, and utilities, and information. Slide. We also tracked the number of unemployment claimants. We saw construction, manufacturing, and public administration seeing the largest jumps. All sectors had increases, although accommodation and food services and educational services only had small increases. That's presumably, again, because accommodation and food services had trouble finding staff, so they hire people back really quickly. There are other impacts that we've noted in the SEDS. We have noted that the drug crisis, although it is not talked about as much anymore, the Greater Lowell Health Needs Assessment, at least from last year, has noted that we still have opioid-related deaths that are higher than we'd like. I'm sorry, it still says TBD and environmental sustainability and resilience. We do have an explanation of what impacts we've seen here, including especially flooding, both the actual flooding, especially in Billerica, but also the continued increase in flood insurance. We also see some important steps towards like the stretch code and creating more energy efficient buildings, but also that creating a challenge because it increases the cost of development. We also saw big impacts to water and wastewater infrastructure, especially the city of Lowell's penalty for combined sewer stormwater overflows. The system, of course, though, doesn't only serve Lowell, it serves many communities. And then the only other, then the other kind of big concern that we've seen from the water side is PFAS, especially in our western communities that don't take water off of the Merrimack River. We see a continued need for broadband access, and then finally, the last one, the state of emergency and the former UMass Lowell Indian Conference Center. It is both an opportunity and an impact in that not only the former UMass Lowell Indian Conference Center, but also many other hotels have been used as family shelters. And there is some long-term prospects of the former Indian Conference Center used as a hospitality training center, but in the meantime, that is a pretty big impact for downtown Lowell. A bright spot, though, is educational attainment. Our region has always had a strong point in educational attainment, and it has continued to improve according to the 5-year American Community Surveys. It keeps getting better. That's both the city, where we're seeing fewer and fewer people without high school degrees and more people with college degrees, and in the other municipalities where we're seeing more people with advanced degrees. That said, Greater Lowell still trails Massachusetts as a whole, and Lowell still trails the United States. No, thank you. So to summarize, after 2 years of pandemic recovery seems to slow somewhat in Massachusetts, but especially in our region. High interest rates and high housing costs seem to be one of the drivers of that. We're seeing an outmigration of young people who would normally be entering the workforce. Our region is underperforming in terms of new business formation. We saw job losses in some of the highest paid sectors, and two of those sectors had decline in average wages. We have other headwinds like declining transit access, municipal difficulty with municipal tax receipts, and other community needs. But we really still have that excellent educational attainment, along with UMass Lowell as an anchor when compared to the United States. So we're really seeing kind of an ebbing of the post-pandemic growth that we were experiencing, possibly due to the weakening cost of living versus wage dynamic. So I'm gonna pause for a minute because my voice is tired, and we're gonna go into the schedule of goals, but I want to pause in case there are any questions on those statistics, and then I'll go into what we are proposing as our priorities for 2024.
No, they all check out, sorry.
Yes, very nice.
I don't see any questions.
Right, cool. So on to the schedule of goals. This is what the SEDS committee has voted on. Well, the entire thing was, but really we want them to make sure that this is what the committee really is behind. They have voted unanimously to recommend it. So the first first activity is completing the new 5-year SEDS. Our 5-year SEDS, I think we've mentioned to the council before, ends in May 2025. And we applied for a $75,000 grant to be paired with $70,000 of DLTA money to make a roughly $150,000 project to do a new 5-year SEDS. And I did get just an email today saying that basically we've been awarded the money, but the EDA doesn't have that money in their bank account. So they have to wait for that, the authorization, and once they get the authorization, they can then actually award us the funding.
But that's great. Yeah. I'm glad you got it. You're not.
Yeah.
We should ask them for other timing.
Really, we'll be working with the consultant. We really want to focus on building capacity. Isabella and I are the economic development team, but we also work a lot on housing. So we really want to beef up our economic development capacity and understand how to best do that as part of this 5-year plan. And we also want to hold a major summit in the fall. And we'll be integrating several other major planning processes. The second highest priority is planning for housing. That includes completing housing production plans for the finishing up Lowell. It should be done in a few months. But we also have 3 town housing production plans that we'll be working on. We have the at-home and Greater Lowell Regional Housing Strategic Plan, which is a huge priority for NMCOG and for our partners. And we also have Regional Housing Services Organization. We're seeking funding for that currently. The other housing priority is to continue to support municipalities in compliance with the NMCOG community multifamily requirements. After the housing, infrastructure is our next biggest goal. And we have kind of 4 separate items that we are thinking about and discussing. One of which is to really get everybody who is on the Greater Lowell Sewer together along with other experts and really figure out what the next steps are to address sewer capacity issues for that. That might be grant writing, that might be something else, we don't know, but that is one priority. We want to support the exploration of the sewer system within Redford. We understand there's some interest in exploring that. We want to coordinate with interested municipalities, including potentially Pepperell, Dunstable, maybe Chelmsford, some others, in terms of a PFAS response strategy, just to see how NMCOG can support the great work that they are already doing on that. And then finally, we want to seek funding and research programs that may assist with mapping, first of all, mapping, but ultimately figuring out how to make sure that we have enough energy for both the housing that you need in our region, but also high-tech industries, which really are power hungry. And we know that, and we want to make sure that we have the grid that can support that, and affordable energy, which is a critical issue that we identified. There's a number of energy and sustainability planning issues that we are advancing, mostly on the climate pollution reduction grant that will create a regional priority climate action plan. Our next priority is we're basically going, we completed the Envision 2050 regional transportation plan last year, and so it's really going into some of the steps, the next steps, including evaluation travel patterns through a new software program and work on helping communities implement their police plans. We also identified transit as a real critical issue. We're doing a bunch of inventory for amenities and accessibility, including a lot of data collection. So basically, we need to set a baseline before we move forward. We also want to develop a scope of work for a regional bike and ped plan. And we have a few others you can see that are also including helping the WAKE prepare for the Yankee Doodle bike path. We also, of course, have major projects of transportation safety and state of good repair. At the top of the list is the Rourke Bridge, but we also have several other projects that are occurring in our region that we would support. One thing that the SETS committee believes should continue to be a priority is understanding how to support and strengthen childcare networks. And so we are going to seek ways to review municipal zoning, make sure that that's not a barrier for at least in-home childcare and other childcare related uses. As a first step, not the only step, but the first step this year. Number 10, we mentioned digital equity. As you all know, we're advancing the regional digital equity plan. Isabel's kind of taking the lead on that, doing an amazing job. And so that's a priority to complete that. And also to really make sure that we include small retail and service businesses in that evaluation. We still have that ELTA funding that's specifically for grant application and administration capacity building. Dunstable, Pepperell, and Tewksbury all requested our assistance in project prioritization and identifying grants for some of the priorities. So we'll be working on those, and we'll also be working on other funding opportunities during that time. Regional network of village and neighborhood centers. This is something that is always kind of one of the priorities. That thinking about our neighborhood centers like anything from Railroad Square, Navy Yard, Chelmsford Center, Tewksbury Center, Main Street, you kind of Main Street, right, Main Street, the neighborhood centers in Lowell, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So the things we have right now is trying to figure out how to best identify vacant storefronts. We don't promise we'll do it this year, but we definitely will promise that we'll figure out ways to do it. We have a Chelmsford Center Village Master Plan update, that's the Union Building project, the Industrial Center, and other projects that might revitalize a lot of wayfinding things, a lot of different small projects. Next page. We still need to support industrial mixed use development. That's really a priority of EDA, and where a lot of EDA really wants to help funding. So we want to work with communities to see where the best potential public works grants could be. One of them is at Locust Avenue and Huntingsboro. We need to evaluate opportunity zones, and we are continuing the support of the Hamilton Canal Innovation District in Lowell. China Street in Lowell, Route 3, New Hampshire border southbound exit in Kingsborough. Again, those are kind of just like looking to continue to find ways of supporting them. Tourism and visitation, as you might know, we have some major historic anniversaries coming up. Both the city of Lowell and the United States on the same year are having important birthdays. So we want to kind of get the band back together in terms of a tourism and visitation committee and start talking about regional response to that. And then finally, the economic development district application. This really goes back to how can we increase our economic development capacity. The same email that gave good news about the $75,000 gave completely useless news to the ED, which was like, yeah, we're still working on it. We have no ability to give you any type of time frame for when that might be processed. But we will keep trying. It is still a priority because it really will help us enhance our capacity.
And we determined that there's a typical 3.5-year wait period based upon other regional planning agencies. So we're almost at 3.5 years according to Chris.
Yeah, this has been a multiple executive directors, because I think really we started talking and thinking about this 2 directors ago, so hopefully it'll come true soon.
It will come true soon. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Isabel.
Very nice.
Any questions for Chris on the report from the council? Anybody get any curious questions?
I have a question.
ahead.
So in talking about aiding communities with stretch code and super stretch code, has there been any discussion about battery storage facilities? Because we've been getting a lot of questions about that, and it doesn't really seem to fit in any uses on our use table. So we do have a provision for public utilities, but we have private companies who are looking to come in and build what is essentially a giant Tesla battery farm, like 20 units, and take all of that power off the grid at, off peak times and put it and reintroduce it to the grid during peak times to meet the demand. And if we're moving toward more electrification, there's been some discussion on the planners listserv, which I'm sure, you folks have seen off and on. And nobody really seems to have a great answer to it. So I think in preparation for future and further electrification, I think discussing how we manage battery storage facilities that don't give my fire department agita would be great, because every time it comes up, like they don't even want electric vehicle charging stations under building garages. That's how nervous it's making them. So I think that that's something that needs to be explored.
Interesting.
That's, I really do think that it's kind of under that action item of thinking about the electrical grid and so forth. I hadn't heard it come up before, but that is really interesting.
Drake, it's actually addressing that in their zoning bylaw rewrite.
Oh, in the rewrite? Okay.
Yeah, they do have a section for battery storage.
Yeah, I'd seen Allison talking about that. It just seems that not a lot of people have models for it or not talking about it and just kind of what that looks like. And yeah, our fire department in particular is very interested.
Sure. And Drake, the first responders are certainly very antsy about it. And I think the battery storage that we're talking about is a fairly small.
Oh, yeah, we've had proposals for like huge things, yeah. But we haven't been able to, I always tell people, I don't see how it fits in our use table, but you are welcome to engage a land use attorney and tell me how it fits, and we'll look at it, but no one's called me back. So.
They're gonna leave.
Right.
And even to the point, I think we were initially looking at residential zones for placement, because that's where most of the land is.
And the highest risk for burning everything down, if you ask my fire captain.
I think there's model zoning bylaws around stuff like that too, so we can, but sounds like it dovetails with something we already have in that plan.
Cool. I guess we can talk about it a little bit more offline, so that makes a lot of sense.
Any other questions?
Presentation available?
I will actually send it. I only sent links in my email to various reports unless you posted that presentation to the webpage.
The presentation is not posted to the
Oh, okay.
website.
Okay, we will share
That was a great summary. I looked at the links, but I think your summary.
it. Yeah, no, if it's not on the website, I'll send it.
Can I just, Steve, just a comment?
Go ahead, Jerry.
I know
Mr. Sets
you and I
committee
are
member.
both- You and I are both on the SEDS committee, and
Yes.
I just want to say, and I've complimented Chris to the point of nauseam at this point, but how well he runs the meetings, because we've had a lot of meetings. But again, you know, you saw the presentation and the meetings are really, keep them on time, they're succinct, and I go back to, we had an in-person meeting, we had breakout sessions, and it was a robust discussion. It was difficult to keep everybody under control. We got through the meeting, so there's an awful lot of work that goes into what we just saw, and, you know, I think we see it constantly with the SEDS committee meetings. So anyways, I just wanted to share that with the group.
Yeah, I agree with Jerry. You know, it's a very comprehensive report, as you can see, and I know Chris and Isabel have done a yeoman's job working and also stirring the committee. And we have like 30 members, I think, on the committee. Chris, something of that nature.
And
Isabel?
the one non-voting.
Right, exactly. So I know the majority vote did recommend the 2024 Greater Lowell Annual SEDS Report for adoption to NMCOG Council. So we're looking for a vote tonight for the full document.
Yes,
Any
I'll make
takers?
a motion, I'll make a motion to endorse.
second.
Okay, roll call.
Chris? Chris? Mary? Aye. Pat? Anita?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Phil?
Yes,
Jerry?
Aye.
Chuck?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
James not on anymore. Alex? Aye. And Darren?
Aye. Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank
Chris
you.
and Isabel. Good, great job.
Thank you
Appreciate it.
very much to Chris and Isabel. Really appreciate the work and excited to look at the next beds as well.
Can't wait. Those
Absolutely.
quarterly meetings.
Thank
That's
you,
all
everyone.
good. It really is. Thank you all. Okay, I guess now we go to the executive's director's report.
All right, it's just vacuuming.
Yeah, there's just.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what's been going on. Sorry, you all, can you hear that vacuuming in Zoom land or no? It's very loud here. All right, so I know we're at nearly 8 o'clock, so I'm sensitive to that, and you probably want to share with each other in a community exchange, but I do want to report out a number of highlights. The first one is that we actually received 3 bids for the traffic counting, and we are hoping that we can contract with one of the bidders. Not going to be the consultant who we've been working with this season. So we'll see what happens there. It's potentially a new consultant, and I'll report back next month. And hopefully we'll be able to begin our traffic counting season very soon. The other thing I want to note is we actually had a conversation today with the LRTA, and we are planning to extend our current contract. This has come up in prior meetings, so just as an update, the current contract was strangely March to March. And so it technically expires at the end of this month. Typically, it's a whole calendar year. So we're going to just extend the current contract because we're actually underspending due to various staffing changes related to that contract. So we're going to extend it through the end of this federal fiscal year, actually. so that, as I mentioned at a prior meeting, we'll have a brand new contract that aligns with our MassDOT contract. And we're still trying to determine the exact amount of that so that we can use it for budgeting purposes in FY 25. So that's an important update, and I'll come back to you. Usually we do an endorsement related to the contract, but that won't happen for many months from now due to the fact that they're very happily vaccinated. Cleaning brings me a similar feeling. I really can relate to it.
They can come to my house.
There's like elevated yelling going on upstairs, so you all on Zoom might not be able to hear it. Yeah, it's a moving. All right,
They'll have to come.
I thought you were talking about the LRTA contract.
Yeah,
That's
they were
what happened, but they were cleaning. Doug's moving for it. So that's the LRTA contract. I'll come back to you probably in July, I'm hoping, because I'm not sure that we're meeting in August. One of those months, we haven't figured out which one we're gonna meet. That's when you'll talk about the contract and the ability for me to sign the contract, I think is what you vote on. I also want to mention, this was happening after our last council meeting, which is the Greater Lowell Vision Zero Public Forum. It was pretty well attended. Pat also attended from NMCOG, of course, and Chelmsford. And I thought that we had a really interesting presentation from WSP, a lot of great comments. I think the big thing that we took away from that forum is the need to do some deeper conversations with each municipality that's participating, just to make sure we all understand, the language that we're using around the greater, the Vision Zero planning, but also what would be anticipated in terms of actions. There seems to be a little bit of a gap there, and so we intend to resolve that before we hold the next public forum, which is likely to be in, I think, May at this point. I wanted to, wow, it's very, very loud here at the moment. I also wanted to note that coming up, as you heard from Chris in his presentation, the digital equity program that we're working on, that includes Chris and Isabel, actually. The focus group meetings are being scheduled, and I believe they're coming up next month. There might be some need for council engagement, or you might receive an invitation for that. So I just wanted to flag that for you, that'll be coming up and should be pretty interesting. And then I'll also note that we had a great, hosted by Megan, we had a great stormwater collaborative meeting. It's probably one of the most well-attended meetings that I've seen of that group. I probably mentioned that at our last council meeting, but the follow-up to that is that we also held a good housekeeping training just the other day. We're working on an update to the MOU, and we're also doing a survey to better understand data, GIS, and policy development needs. So there's a lot of interesting follow-up that's going to happen there. And this is being led by Megan. Also, with Megan's leadership, she was able to work with the Lowell Housing Authority as part of an MAPC-led, technically, program on applying for some additional funding through, as you can see here, the Climate Pollution Reduction Grant Program. As part of their implementation component is helping the Lowell Housing Authority and the Boston Housing Authority, and perhaps another housing authority in this greater Boston region that covers all of the climate pollution reduction grant area. We're helping them to apply for basically decarbonization funds. And it could be a pretty significant boost to efforts that they're already engaged in. And so we're pretty excited about that one. And that's actually still ongoing. I think the deadline is coming up in 2 weeks. Chris already reported on the EDA grant, so that's covered. Great. That is exciting, and I really am looking forward to kicking off the next sets process. I think that could be very beneficial. I probably reported this also at our last meeting, so apologies for the repetition here, but we added Pepperell to our list of communities who are receiving our services through rates and measures. And that actually just really started in earnest this month. Yes, yeah, really, it's great to be able to, very much appreciate Mark Normanden's leadership on that program and all that he's doing to really make sure that we're doing things correctly and really serving our communities well. So I really want to say thank you to him on that. I don't have a specific update on MBTA communities other than to say that there is a rigorous amount of debate and dialogue at the local level, probably in each one of our communities. But I would say that my observation is that Westford is really leading across all of them with their efforts, and in part due to a lot of their extreme planfulness in the process that they've used really since the get-go. Started in the summer of 2022, actually. And so I've been really impressed watching it and seeing the work, and I'm, well, looking forward to the report back maybe next week.
Yep, a lot of help from the NMCOG folks too. Thank you.
There you
You're
go.
welcome. We're glad to support. We also kicked off, this was something we signed up on last year, but it really, again, kicked off in earnest, the Chelmsford Open Space and Recreation Plan update. And in fact, just today, got finalization of the contract from the state on that. So excited to see that moving forward. And also trying to wrap up the Drake-it Open Space and Recreation Plan. Also in service to Dunstable and Pepperell, we have a bid out right now to install EV charging stations at 2 municipal buildings. And the responses are due actually on May 9th. So there's a very long time period between when we posted the bid. And we've had many people who are interested in this bid. It is a very small amount of money, and it was a money through an earmark, actually, through, I think, Rep. Scarsdale. And I'm just excited that we're able to do this for those 2 communities. But it is, and we're also learning a lot as part of that process. So we'll report back after we have more results from that, but the bid is posted right now. And then I wanted to note, that we applied for funding through the Community Compact for a grant that would help to fund a staff person who would help to advance regional housing services, potentially developing an organization that would help to make sure that we monitor housing that's already dedicated as affordable, and also ensure fair housing compliance and engage in other activities in support of whatever that organization would want us to do. So having a full-time person who actually can devote their attention to those things would be of great value. And we can't do that right now with our current staffing and capacity. So if we receive this funding, it will help to kickstart that whole initiative that we've been trying to do actually for, I think, 3 years. I believe.
We've been discussing it for that long.
And Sean Cronin said today that we will find out very soon.
Very soon.
Or the EDA very soon, or that's.
It's all relative, that's a relative.
3.5 years later.
Yeah.
It's coming soon.
Yes.
I'm giving you a pull on that.
I think it's safe to say that this initiative will definitely happen and be completed before the road. Just want to say that right and just record it.
And you can take that to the bank.
I will.
Okay.
So 2 important things that have happened is probably you all already know this, but 2 big NEPA filings. One is the Talbot Dam removal. It's actually a new SEIR. We are in the process of preparing. We actually have a draft comment letter. This is a very high priority project. Obviously, it's the town of Billerica, but also it has regional impact. So we're in the process of evaluating that now. The comments are due on March 25th. Similarly, the Yankee Doodle bike path was noted in our SEDS that we're going to help with construction. It's really kind of underway at this point, and we are, of course, very interested in that project as well for reasons related to both connectivity and potentially economic development and related benefits.
Excuse me, Jenny, is it possible to get a look at that letter
Yes.
with regard to the dam to see if it is on the same page as we are?
Yes, and Megan has been, is Megan still
Yes, we
Megan is
actually,
still here?
we exchanged emails the
I
other
am
day.
still here, yes.
And maybe Megan, would you that's the end of my update, actually, so I will remove that screen. Megan, do you want to say anything about the 2 letters?
I.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
Yeah.
In the spot.
Um, I'm learning the new MIPA process, so I will say it's a bit like learning a foreign language, all the legalese. So Jenny has been patient with me as I muddle through. The Talbot River, or the Talbot Mills Dam removal, some of the comments that I had back again is to continue engaging with the historical commission, more at, continuing education with environmental justice communities and the broader community, and water quality, making sure that during the construction process, they're really being very careful with best management practices to make sure that there's minimal sediment and all that sort of thing, so it doesn't disrupt your water supply. For the Yankee Doodle bike path, it seems like it's been something that's been in the works for quite some time. The oldest one that I saw was from 2008.
Yeah.
It seems like it's exactly. It has a really great carbon reduction potential for commuters. It's a really important connection between Bedford and Lowell. Sorry, I can't remember some more of the specifics. But yeah, finally getting some movement, and it seems like the bike path is going to be a really wonderful addition to the community. I did have a suggestion to think about potential green infrastructure installations right around the bike path, since when I was looking at the bike path, it is in, I would say about half the bike path is in the 100 to 500 year floodplain. So it might be a good idea to explore green infrastructure opportunities with the MVP program.
We can always share the draft of the letter
Okay.
once we have it with you, but I think that covered pretty much everything. Thank you, Megan.
Thank you, Megan, for the on-the-spot report.
Thank you very much. Glad to help.
And we bring this to the council meeting and for your attention, because particularly the MIPA letters, because if you do have or wish to weigh in with any comments, please do so probably in the next 2 days, so that we can finalize the letter, not later than Friday, and submit it because it is due. So you can follow up.
Okay. Thank you, Jenny. Any questions? Any other comments? Sorry, go ahead. Okay, any other comments for Jenny, Executive Director's report? Thank you, Jenny.
You're welcome.
Okay. Community exchange. Bill Areca, you're up.
Oh, fun. No, so we got a lot going on. I'm actually at the open space. We're discussing our open space plan, and literally I might bring that up as a suggestion for green infrastructure regarding the bike path or the floodplains. So I've been kind of going back and forth actually right now between the 2 meetings. So I'm sorry for that, but that was just, I wanted to. So it's,
looks like it's still traveling.
So yeah, well, I got about 1%.
Where you are.
1% right now. So I'll be, yeah, so we did file the MBTA communities. I submitted the MBTA Communities Act for the town to get it on the ballot. It was not a there was only 6 people there instead of the usual 7. So it was but it was a 4-2 vote. But I petitioned to put it on and I got another 2 planning board members. So a total of 3 planning board members to petition it, to put it on the warrant. A select board member decided to also put on MBTA community guidelines thing around Jack's junkyard. So that was also on there. So we have like at least
I'm so
2
sorry. It's terrible. It's terrible. It's terrible. Sorry, Chris.
Thank you, Chris.
Chris.
I
Chris
think
disappeared.
he lost his battery.
He disappeared.
He was at
He ran
1%.
out of, he ran out of running room.
Oh, is that what happened?
Yeah,
Oh, I
yeah,
heard
he
you
was,
say
his
1%,
phone was
but I didn't know
dying,
this happened.
and he was in a hallway.
Well, but let
Okay.
me finish for you. The planning board at their meeting, voted 2 in favor, 4 against.
Yeah.
And thus Chris and some of his colleagues ponied up and put in a separate petition or warrant article into
Yeah.
the warrant. Somebody at one of the select board members didn't know which one by virtue of the Jack's junkyard. But it's a huge campaign to try to have reality set in and have people not be idiots. So I don't know how else to say it. But, we're getting ready for town meeting. We're halfway through all the finance committee meetings about town meeting and we're moving along. We're busy. And if you can have time to change your town residents, the town elections, April 6th, Andy's running election against the person who sued the town not to have to fix our town center. So it's a crazy world of Billerica.
These B towns, I live in one too, but not Billerica.
It's different from I was just thinking about your B town. Yeah, it's a crazy time, but you know what? We've been through this before. We're tough. We can move it. We can be positive.
Okay, thank you. Report from Chelmsford.
Okay, I have just a couple of quick things. We recently heard about a federal earmark that was passed that, from Lori Trahan's office that will allow us to construct about a 3/4 mile sidewalk near the Byam School in South Chelmsford to allow kids to walk more safely to
Oh,
school.
nice.
So that's,
Nice.
Yeah.
we're
Nice.
excited about that.
Good.
And also the select board is anticipating, feverishly anticipating on our Monday meeting to have Jenny and Kelly come and present to the select board. So, tune in. And that's all I have.
What's the subject matter?
NMCOG.
These are,
Oh, these are-
yeah, so
Yeah, dog and pony show.
I have 3 more communities.
Good.
to,
Oh, no,
yeah.
nice. Good.
Thank you. Report from Drake. Drake.
Okay, for Drake,
Sorry.
the MSBA has approved the selection of an OPM for our feasibility study for the Campbell School, and that is Hill Lero International, I believe. So we're gonna be putting out an RFQ for, designer services now, hopefully have that on board within a couple of months, and then again, to the MSBA for their approval. And so I guess we plan to have the feasibility study finished up for November 2025. So we can take a look at what a debt exclusion would be at that point. Drake Scholarship Telethon is over the next 3 days, where they raise money for scholarships, as you can imagine, for Drake students. Last year, I think they raised $165,000.
That's great.
So they
That's a
do
lot
a
of
very
money.
good job over the 3 days, and it's televised over Drake Access Television.
That's good.
Yeah, we continue to do our zoning bylaw review, which also has included the MBTA community zoning, so work in progress. I don't know if Mike has anything to add to that.
Mike?
No, you hit pretty much everything right on the head, Phil. I was gonna pretty much talk the same thing, the zoning bylaw, the Campbell School, all that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you both. Anybody from Dunstable here?
No.
Okay. Let's move on to Lowell.
All right, this is a regional report first. So we had the 5th and last meeting of the Rock Bridge Working Committee this afternoon. That was on the original committee a decade ago. And I've stayed on the committee. So just to let everybody know that it is still on schedule, and I'm gonna go over the timeline with everybody. It's a design build. So it's helped to expedite the process. Again, it's all relative now when we talk about expedite. An RFP will be going out in August. twenty twenty-four. Construction will begin mid-2025. Construction timeline is 3 years with an anticipated ribbon cutting of mid-2028. The funding is approximately $190 million. It's in the 2024 tip. Again, this was the last working group meeting. It's being turned over to the construction team at this point. I will just give you just some brief highlights because this was we've gone through several, meetings that covered different things, lighting on the bridge and how we wanted to have the pedestrian access and bike paths and walking paths and observation decks. So we really went into the landscaping, at this meeting and they really, I think that everybody's gonna be excited by, both the south, abutment and the north abutment and what they're doing, with the treatment with that, on the Wood Street side. Because the new bridge is gonna go diagonally across and line up with Old Ferry Road. But when you've got the abutment that's there right now, it's going to be an observation deck. And there's going to be plantings, there's gonna be a bike rack there as well, so you can actually observe from that point as well. They're taking an ecological approach as far as low maintenance on the, ecological approach, low maintenance on the plantings that are used. They have quite an amount of street trees. There's some medium strips on Vateca Boulevard that'll have plantings as well. And they're actually on the northern side where the bridge comes down now will be kind of a pastoral park, which will have some views to the river. But more importantly, from there, it'll have a pedestrian light with a crosswalk going to the other side of the boulevard. So really to provide those connections where we've got some open space on the other side, actually. And the whole idea is to try to have some connectivity with all of that walking. So very excited. I think everybody's gonna be very pleased with the finished product. There's so much cynicism out there in the community. I keep reporting, hang in there. There's nothing to tell us that this is not gonna happen. And the funding is there. You keep hearing this stuff that's thrown out there. So anyway, that's a report of progress.
There you go.
And then I must say, you may say Westford is taking the lead on MBTA communities, but that's for the town. The city of Lowell is way ahead of the rest of you.
That is true.
The rest of you on that. So I will say, because it was some time ago I reported, we did approve 3 transportation oriented zones, high rise, medium rise, and neighborhood zones. Oddly enough, very rarely do I refer to the paper for accuracy on a story, but I was gonna report on this project, and it turns out it's on the front page of the paper today, and actually Bill was the architect on this, but this was our first project in one of the transportation oriented zones where there was no parking required, 4-story building, and it's 33 units. And I think people need to understand the beauty of this, and these are for home ownership, the condominiums. And it's for first-time home buyers earning at or below 100% of the area median income. And then that really dovetails very nicely with the Acre Crossing project, which once again also has 32 newly constructed units, and that is home ownership. And again, we took a lot of heat on the planning board. Original plan was to put dormitories, private dorms there. It was really gonna encompass the whole site. It was really an awful plan. And we took a lot of heat for that. We took a lot of heat everywhere in the paper. It was an appeal. They even tried to go after some of the board members. I mean, it was really quite the process, but we held out really good on that. Christine McCall worked for the city at the time, senior planner, did a great job defending our position on that decision. And I think what we're gonna end up with in that section is really gonna be an enhancement to the neighborhood. So, and if you get a chance to see, Phil was the architect, the design of the building was fantastic. And we had some revisions and they came back,
Yeah, and I have to say that Lowell was very good to work with on a professional basis.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So we try to tell people that. I think there's people try to make an argument in Lowell to use the national talking points and state talking points, but at the end of the day, it's not reality as to what it's like to go through the land use boards here in the city and actually try to do something. Some of the challenges are more economic in nature and some of the challenges that we're trying to deal with. So that's my my report. But please stay tuned for the Wolf Bridge. Everybody stay healthy.
Hey, hey,
Put it on your calendar, right away.
We'll get the EDA designation then to work with it.
There you go.
hey, Jerry, can you fish off the New Rock Bridge?
What's that?
Can you fish?
I say, can you
Fish.
Maybe at the park. The
No,
park.
yeah, at the
Yeah.
park, yeah.
At the park,
The observation deck, Steve, the observation deck, people are gonna be just blown away by those observation decks. And when you
That's cool.
consider, I mean, we have the largest rowing event in preparation for the Charles here. And I think that's just gonna, oh my God, that's just gonna enhance that.
Wow, that's great.
The only question was brought up today's meeting, which I thought was pretty interesting, is that, did they think of addressing, and that's gonna be local police, but, and I get it, people are on the observation decks and you're watching the boats coming in one direction and you're watching on the bridge, there's gonna be this temptation to wanna go to the other side of the bridge to kind of, watch them, continue, so, but that's more of a local, how you wanna handle that,
No, but, well, I hope to live long enough to see it.
yeah.
Okay, Pepperell? Chuck? Can't hear you.
Sorry, I
There
was
you are.
muted.
problem.
The Pepperell, the biggest thing that's going on right now, and that's consuming most of the select board's time, is our budgeting process. Monday night, we did have a special select board meeting after the FinCom meeting, and we did prepare the language for a $3 million override for the town of Pepperell. Part of that $3 million is to fix a budget deficit that we had last year of about $710,000. So it's not all related to this fiscal year, but also last fiscal year. Two parts are coming up with that. One is the school budget is going up roughly 6.2%, and that's creating significant stress on the town, as well as other operational needs that the town has made or needs. So I think we're going to have an uphill battle in Pepperell to get the override to pass. That if it does not pass, I think it's going to have significant ramifications for the town of Pepperell. And that, we just can't cut $3 million out of our budget. We'd be less than bare bones at that level. So we are going to be facing some difficult situations. I did participate in a MAA webinar today about Chapter 70 funding, and that definitely is part of the problem, especially for the school districts or regional school districts. So I think Pepperell in the next few months will be having a special town meeting. We'll have a special election, and then we'll have our annual town meeting. So we'll have 3 key meetings coming up, one right after the other, in the next couple of months. So it's going to be an interesting spring for the town of Pepperell.
Thanks, Chuck, I think.
Well, I always get criticized for being the bearer of bad news, but that's the reality.
That's the position you're in, yeah. Thank you, Chuck. Tewksbury?
Excuse me, Steve, did we lose
Go ahead.
Joan?
Oh, yes, Joan left the board.
Oh, I'm so
maybe
sorry to hear that. She was
last month.
Yeah, sorry.
She was
Yeah.
that picky.
Yeah, she had
She
to
was-
sort of, yeah, she was over obligated.
Yeah,
But she's
she was
okay.
on overload.
Yeah, it was a lot. So
That's a
it was, I think, multiple
But
things.
she-
Yeah.
Okay, she's in something.
Yeah, she's in a happy place now.
Still with Pepperell.
Yeah, I'm just kidding. No, she's great. She's great.
Yeah, I felt that we care. Not to be, I appreciate that.
But thanks for asking.
Designee from the planning board.
Yeah, with that, Mary, Joan is on the planning board, and we've been
Yeah.
without a town planner for close to a year now, and a lot of the weight is falling on the planning board. And it's just the process is getting bogged down. You can imagine not having a full-time planner to assist the board.
I can't, it must be awful, yeah.
Yeah, it's tough.
It's very difficult. So I know that Joan thought really hard about it because she liked coming to the NMCOG meetings, but it was just everything that she's been doing for the town, which is wonderful. It just became too much for her.
Sure, you have to make choices, yeah.
Yeah, she's also assistant clerk and also an EDAC and other committees, so there's a lot going on. Okay, thank you. So back to Tewksbury?
Sure,
Report?
thank you.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
So just to start, I don't normally see a lot of folks. My name is Alex Louder. I'm the town planner and the
Hi, Alex.
alternate, the fill-in friend.
Thank
And
you
just
for
a
coming.
couple of updates. They're gonna be zoning heavy because of who's here. To start, we did have the last meeting of our select board chair, Todd Johnson, after 15 years of service. We're really, really sad to see him go. We really enjoyed his leadership and his ability to bring people together. So we're gonna miss him a lot. And on that note, our election is also Saturday, April 6th, and we have his vacated seat that is uncontested. He's obviously not running for reelection, and then one of the other board members is running for his seat as an incumbent, and there's 3 other candidates. Planning board's running unopposed, school committee is, I think, 1 seat contested. So a little spicy, nothing crazy though. Our annual town meeting is Monday, May 6th and Wednesday, May 8th, with the big show on zoning happening on the 8th. Like Bill Riga, you know, a lot of our FinCom hearings are well underway, and my night in the hot seat is gonna be April 22nd. They're very nice boards, okay. Let's see. One of the other big talks of our town has been retail marijuana, so we approved it as a by right use from a zoning perspective with a licensing component in October of 22. And we had 2 establishments licensed last year. They both went through the planning board process and received site plan approval. With that 3rd license still dangling, we haven't seen a complete and desirable application come in to fill that 3rd seat, but we do expect that the 2 that did receive licenses to be building, if not completely built this year. They have received their licenses from the CCC, and they're both ready for building permits, which is exciting. One of them is Lazy River, who I know we share with Drink It. And on the 4th note, we do have a lot of sidewalk and road resurfacing projects to kind of add on to what we saw on Main Street. We had one major segment of Main Street where we saw sidewalks on both sides of the road, in some places definitely on one side and others, and a full milling, resurfacing and repaving to many a delight. We'll be continuing more of that work along Main Street as we work towards the Wilmington line. And we have some federal funds from Congressman Seth Moulton for sidewalks on Whipple Road to go right in front of my house. And some complete streets money that's going to help with our connectivity on Livingston Street to connect existing sidewalks to our housing authority, our ball fields on East Street, and really just beef up our network of sidewalks. Let's see, so the big zoning showdown here, so funner stuff, and then we'll go to MBTA communities. We have a 40B adaptive reuse for a extended stay hotel converting to permanent residential units. 130 residential units come between 1 and 2 bedrooms. They did get a waiver for the 3 bedrooms because otherwise it would have significantly cut down on the number of units they would have had in the project. They received the comprehensive permit last July. They are working on doing some of the infrastructure updates, electrical work and things like that, sub-metering, until their Marriott flag expires in January of 25, which is when they'll move forward with the full conversion. That same group, Sawyer Realty Group, if anybody's looking for a really good developer, they also purchased a former memory care facility called the Woodhaven, which is at 2580 Main Street, closer to the Wilmington line. That building had really changed hands multiple times through a lot of, really no other way to say it, shady owners, as can happen in nursing homes and care facilities. And this group is going to turn them into semi-independent living facilities for 55 plus. So there's going to be 1 and 2 bedroom and studios, and there's going to be complete kitchen facilities, all of those units. So folks can either participate in the communal services, or they can basically live independently on the site. Another note that the NMCOG team alluded to in their discussions is we do have a DLTA for small lot studies in Tewksbury. So we have a lot of those orphan lots left over from subdivision plans from, I don't know, 1953, just throwing a number out there, definitely wasn't looking at a plan today for 1953, trying to see if we can make section 6 findings, and, you know, that being that the lot was created through a lawfully created subdivision plan, but was never built on, and now the zoning has made it so it doesn't meet the criteria for minimum lot size or minimum frontage or what have you. And the biggest problem with that is a lot of them fell into common ownership and are then subject to merger doctrine. So the ones that aren't subject to that are still kind of lying around. So we're looking to examine clusters of 1.5 acre zoning lots. The planning board chair is very excited about this. He wanted in our recodification a couple of years ago and he was shot down. So I think this is going to be his vengeance, and it's going to be great. Oh, really, because we're gonna be able to do a lot of infill housing in neighborhoods that you very clearly walk by and you're like, something is supposed to be there and there just isn't. And then the big bad in the room, MBTA communities. So we went, I think the last time I spoke to you guys was probably late last year. We did all of our outreach and all of those things. So I've spoken to you all, we have gone through the pre-adoption review process with the Attorney General's office and with EOHLC. We have received those preliminary comments, 0 from the AG, which is great news. Means we're not running afoul of any laws, which is cool. And EOHLC's comments were relatively minor and quite consistent with what other communities in the area have received, and made those small adjustments. And the planning board voted 4-1 to sponsor the article on the town meeting warrant. So I think at this point that one dissenting vote has come around for one reason or another. And we should have a unanimous support discussion after the public hearing on Monday. And then it's going to advance to Finance Committee and Select Board for discussion, depending on how the April 6th election goes. Will definitely dictate how the Select Board discussion goes. And ending on higher notes, we have a health fair that our town nurse is working really hard to put together for April 4th at our senior center. We also just finished up having our pilot winter farmers market also at the senior center. One of the biggest complaints that we had from our vendors and our patrons was that we don't have one during the winter. And we said, well, where will we put it? And the senior center director said, I have an idea. And so we ran 3 markets there and it was really successful. Probably going to be doing that again next winter, but for now we are in planning for summer mode. Our season runs June through September, and we are at the Livingston Street Recreation Complex. And finally, I actually met with members of our school PACs, police department, fire department, and our library today to establish what we're calling Tewksbury Halloween Fest, because we realized that across multiple organizations within town, we were holding 9 separate events in the fall between September and October, which is asinine, and that's too many. So we've decided to combine our forces, and we've gotten the sign-offs from the police and fire chiefs to shut down a part of Main Street for a period of time. So we're looking to throw a big bash at the end of October. Okay. Thank you.
All I can say is a lot going on in Tewksbury, that's for sure.
Quite.
Thank you. Quite. Anybody from Tingsboro here? Represented here today?
No.
Okay. Westford, you're up. Batter up.
So, pretty quick, basically Saturday is our annual meeting. So 2 big things on the agenda are the override and the MBTA communities bylaw amendment. So we're expecting overflow crowds. We actually have a couple of different venues that are going to be operating kind of simultaneously. So, it's going to be a big event. Hopefully we can get the MBTA thing sewn up so we don't have to deal with it in the fall, but hoping to wrap that up on Saturday. So those are the main things with us.
Thank you very much.
Good luck.
Reminders and announcements. Jenny, reminders and announcements.
Yep, I need a little guidance, so I'm getting the agenda up, and it's basically just to tell you that next Wednesday we have our MPO meeting at 2 p.m. That is where we're going to share the 2 tip scenarios that we've been developing and hopefully get a vote with the preferred scenario that we will then develop into the tip. And then the next council meeting is on April 17th. And I believe that is all.
Okay. Any other business? Not have a vote to adjourn without a roll call, please.
So moved.
All in
Second.
favor?
Yes, for that as well.
Thank you all.
Thank you,
Have a
Steve.
great
Thank you,
week.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
See you next month.
Thanks,
everybody.
Megan.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.